From the Digital Media Center, on the campus of Southern Oregon University in Ashland, Oregon. This is Ramping Up Your English, an educational program for intermediate-level English language learners. Here's your host for Ramping Up Your English, John Letts.
Welcome to Ramping Up Your English. Ramping Up Your English is an instructional support program for intermediate-level English learners. Now, if you've already passed the beginning stages of learning English and you want to reach higher levels of English proficiency, this program is designed to meet your needs and get you closer to your goal. Ramping Up Your English is for English learners from all language backgrounds and for people of all ages. We take a content-based approach to helping you reach higher levels of English proficiency. Our current thematic unit is Native Americans.
This is segment 1 of episode 97. As we saw in our previous episode, the voyage of Christopher Columbus had a major impact on the friendly, curious, and welcoming people who had contact with the Spanish explorer. While he didn't make contact with the merchants of India as he had hoped, and while he returned with little in the way of riches, Columbus was an instant superstar in Spain. To the Catholic monarchs, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, the fact that Columbus sailed east, found land, and returned to Spain meant that Spain was no longer locked out of the trade with the East by rival Portugal. Within a year, Columbus was sent back, this time with 17 ships and colonists to claim the land for Spain. While Spain claimed exclusive right to all that it had discovered, other countries started sending ships out westward. Thus began a period known as the Age of Discovery. All this activity resulted in a great deal of knowledge and rivalry, but that's not the focus of this unit. For a very brief accounting of this activity, we'll watch this video. Hang on to your seat. This moves very quickly through the highlights of this historical chapter.
Story time with Mr. Beat.
What it is. My name is Mr. Beat. For thousands of years, millions of human beings lived on the North American continent. We call these human beings Native Americans because they were there first. But after this dude named Christopher Columbus became the first famous European to stumble upon the giant continent, a flood of European explorers came for riches, glory, conquest, and even to spread their religion. Here is the story of the American explorers.
Once upon a time, for thousands of years, the human beings on two continents, Europe and North America, just ignored each other. Then, in the late 980s, a group known as the Norsemen, more famously known as the Vikings, left Iceland, heading west. Led by Eric the Red, who had been banished from Iceland for murder, they eventually came across the island of Greenland and settled there. Later, Eric had a son named Leif Erikson. Get it? Eric, son, who grew up to head even further west, leading a ship to what is today known as Labrador, Baffin Island, and Newfoundland. Thus, Erikson became the first known European to explore North America. Almost 500 years later, Christopher Columbus became the next European to explore the Americas. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Sorry about that. Anyway, after 10 weeks at sea, Columbus reached what is now known as the Bahamas. He named the place they landed San Salvador. Thinking he had reached Asia, he kept going until he reached modern-day Cuba, which he assumed was China. When Columbus returned to Spain the next year, he had products with him totally unknown to Europe like coconuts, tobacco, and potatoes. He also had stories of darker-skinned native peoples he encountered, whom he called Indians, because he thought he was sailing in the Indian Ocean. Columbus later made 3 more trips to America between 1494 and 1502, exploring modern-day Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Jamaica, and Trinidad. After all this, he still was convinced he was exploring Asia. Others weren't so convinced. Spain and Portugal sent many other ships to explore this, quote, new world in those early years, and on one of the ships sent by Portugal was a dude named Amerigo Vespucci. an Italian who was not convinced they were exploring Asia. After his trip viewing modern-day Brazil, he was sure this land was part of a new continent. Vespucci spread the word about the new continent, convincing people he was right and Columbus was wrong. In 1507, the German cartographer Martin Waldseemüller made a world map in which he named the new continent America, after the Latin feminine version of Vespucci's first name, which is Americus. Meanwhile, it became clear there were two Americas, meaning a North America and a South America, after Spanish explorers went exploring like crazy up north. In 1513, Juan Ponce de Leon went searching for the Fountain of Youth and ended up finding and naming Florida. By the way, he never found a Fountain of Youth. That same year, Vasco Núñez de Balboa made it through the Isthmus of Panama to be the first European to reach the eastern coast of the Pacific Ocean. In 1519, the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his crew sailed around the bottom tip of South America, across the Pacific Ocean to the Philippines, where Magellan was killed in the Battle of Mactan. But his crew kept on going afterwards, with Juan Sebastian Elcano now leading, sailing around the southern tip of Africa and returning to Europe in 1522, becoming the first expedition to circumnavigate the entire planet. In the 1500s, Spain became the richest country in the world because of its explorers who were also conquistadors. The same year Magellan's crew sailed out from Spain, Hernando Cortés and his army conquered the Aztec Empire of modern-day Mexico. By 1521, Cortés had taken control of all of the Aztecs' gold and silver mines. In 1531, Francisco Pizarro and his expedition took out the Inca Empire of Peru, gaining access to the Inca silver mines of Potosí. So yeah, Spain had so much precious metals they didn't know what to do with it all, and even caused prices to skyrocket in Western Europe because of it. However, they killed a bunch of people to get it. But wait, Spain wasn't finished yet. In 1535 through 1536, Pedro de Mendoza went south to present-day Buenos Aires in Argentina, founding a colony there. Meanwhile, Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca explored the modern-day southwest United States, where he also traded with and even became a faith healer to various Native American tribes. In 1539, Francisco Vázquez de Coronado found the Grand Canyon. After that, his expedition journeyed through much of the modern-day southwest United States as well, and then up to the Great Plains of North America, searching for cities of gold that didn't exist. Around the same time Coronado was on the Great Plains, Hernando de Soto explored the modern-day southeastern United States. By 1650, Spain had conquered most of North and South America, despite the fact that millions of Native Americans were already there. Tragically, these explorers brought European diseases with them that Native Americans were not immune to. It's now estimated that between 20 and 100 million natives may have been killed as a result of the diseases which swept through North and South America. In 1524, a Florentine explorer sailing for France named Giovanni da Verrazzano sailed up the east coast of North America from Florida all the way up to modern New Brunswick. He described North America as, quote, densely populated. By the 1600s, however, it's possible 95% of Native Americans were gone, dying from diseases like smallpox. It was very post-apocalyptic. As Jack O'Brien and Elford Alley from Crack.com cleverly pointed out, quote, using your history books to understand what America was like in the 100 years after Columbus landed there is like trying to understand what modern-day Manhattan is like based on the post-apocalyptic scenes from I Am Legend, unquote. 10 years after Verrazzano sailed for France, Jacques Cartier also sailed for France, exploring the St. Lawrence River as far as modern-day Montreal. In the 1560s, two French explorers, Jean Riboud and René de Laudonnière, explored Florida, but soon the Spanish would kick the French north. From that point on, the French concentrated their exploration to the north and west. In 1608, Samuel de Champlain built a fort at modern-day Quebec and explored modern-day Nova Scotia south to modern-day Cape Cod. Sorry I keep saying modern day, but I have to be accurate here. Those who sailed for New France didn't get the precious metals Spain did, but they did get wealth through the fur trade. England also sent explorers. In 1497, John Cabot sailed for England and explored modern-day Newfoundland. Wait, Newfoundland is no longer Newfound land because Leif Erikson found it 500 years prior, but I digress. It wasn't until the mid-1500s that England sent more explorers, mainly to establish a presence in North America and find a magical Northwest Passage, or a water route that went through the continent. While the English weren't exceptionally notable for exploration compared to Spain, Portugal, and France, they knew how to colonize, which I will get to in a future video. The Dutch also got in on the exploration action. In 1609, Henry Hudson led an expedition to North America for the Dutch East India Company, claiming areas along the Hudson River. Yeah, he named it after himself. Go figure. As far as modern-day Albany, New York. He also explored further north at the Hudson Bay, which of course was named after him, and that's where he was abandoned by his crew who mutinied. By 1615, other Dutch companies had laid claims between New France in the north and Virginia in the south, where the British had laid claims. By the 1600s, more and more explorers were looking to stay in the Americas instead of claiming and conquering and then heading back to Europe. The exploration there would continue for centuries, but less on such a wide scale. With European countries now dominating the two continents and nearly all of the Native Americans wiped out, this exploration is one of the most significant developments in human history, though it is something that we don't know a whole lot about. All of these American explorers caused what is now referred to as the Age of Discovery, and it was this period that basically created our modern era. The end.
We want to thank Mr. Beat for that high-speed trip through the Age of Discovery.
You're watching Ramping Up Your English. This is segment 2 of episode 97. While the video we just watched took a light, humorous approach to the Age of Discovery, our previous episode included the awful impact these explorers had on the Native American community. These impacts may be conveniently missing from traditional history instruction. From a European perspective, it's very uncomfortable to confront the terrible price that was paid by Native Americans for those days of glory. In my time, I grew up seeing Christopher Columbus as a hero. And exploring the unknown is one of the most courageous things that people ever do. Remember all those early Americans who first explored and settled these continents thousands of years ago? Imagine the discomfort felt by Native Americans when they're taught about these wonderful European explorers, without even mentioning the tragedy this caused their ancestors. So what should history teach? History is taught so we can know what happened, with the idea that hopefully we'll learn from it. Should we continue to teach history from a European perspective, from a Native American perspective? Well, in my opinion, the answer is yes. We should do from both points of view. That's what would lead to understanding. Columbus was a courageous and determined man with a vision. Equipped with the knowledge he had, he endeavored to find a new way to open trade with Asia. He was willing to put his vision to the test. Columbus also advanced the science of navigation and demonstrated remarkable resiliency. He also had his limitations and marked disregard for human rights and even basic human decency. Columbus had no hesitation about enslaving the people who had received him with kindness. Indeed, his own words in a letter to the monarchs of Spain reflected the twisted belief that the very kindness they demonstrated made these people especially suited for slavery. While history doesn't tie Columbus directly to the crimes of humanity that were carried out by the people he brought to America, those crimes happened under his watch, and it's difficult to imagine that he was ignorant of them. Columbus was also a victim of his own short-sightedness. He refused to believe the experts of his time when their math was telling them that Columbus was nowhere near Asia. To his dying day, Columbus insisted that the lands he visited were somehow attached to Asia, even to India. Like some leaders in today's world, he kept choosing to believe his fantasy when most experts disagreed. So, looking at the whole historical picture, I think Columbus can be admired for his accomplishments and his gifts. However, a clear factual look at history, including the perspective of those who suffered so cruelly, also reveals his shortcomings. Both are true. Some people wrongly oppose looking at history from different points of view. But are those people really trying to preserve history or some kind of fantasy? Point of view is a major consideration when looking at past events. It's said that history is written by the conquerors. That seems true enough. But much of what we know about Columbus and other Europeans comes from the written word of those very people. And much of what they wrote reflects the crimes that were committed against the people who were living here before the arrival of Europeans. In this unit on Native Americans, I've mostly left it to viewers to use the context of the videos and the repetition of certain concepts to figure out the meaning of various words, especially often used words and phrases. Now I'm going to be more direct about this issue of vocabulary. It's important for us to clarify some of the vocabulary we need to understand the content of this unit.
In studying Native Americans, you'll no doubt come across the word savage. A check of the dictionary shows that this word is rooted in a type of forest. The word in Spanish is selva. The word savage can be a noun or an adjective, a thing or person, or it can describe a thing or person, or an action, a behavior. The word savage can refer to someone isolated from education or civilization. In the context of our unit, though, the word savage fits the definition of cruel, vicious, callous, and even criminal actions, and the people who carry out such behaviors. We saw plenty of examples in our last episode. Cutting the hands off people who didn't give Spaniards enough gold is unquestionably a savage act. The people who committed these crimes can also be called savages. Those who abuse women in front of their family members are also committing savage acts. As we progress through our study of Native Americans, we'll see our share of savage acts, savagery, committed. It's not an uplifting thing, but it is reality, it is history, and those who record history often use the word savage to describe actions and people. Most Europeans apply the term only to actions of Native Americans. Some other words we'll encounter in this unit include one that I just used in defining savage. It's the word cruel. Cruel describes behavior that inflicts great pain and injury to a person or animal. All humans are capable of being cruel, but some seem especially immune to the pain of others, and even enjoy inflicting pain and injury. Systems can also be cruel. To abuse is to harm someone or treat them cruelly. To abuse can also mean to betray the trust someone has. To enslave someone is definitely a form of abuse. Committing violence to someone is also abuse. Abuse is written the same way as a verb and as a noun. As a verb, it's pronounced abuse. As a noun, it's pronounced abuse. Did the invader abuse the people? The people resisted that abuse. It's all spelled the same way. Enslave is a word you're probably familiar with. To enslave is to force someone to work without paying them. The enslavement of Native Americans began during the voyages of Columbus. Another term that comes up in studying Native Americans is encroach. This verb means to enter and often degrade the territory of another. Native tribes had to be vigilant against neighbors encroaching on their territory, denying them the use of their own area. This is often a gradual process, entering a small part of a territory at first, but then escalating to more of the area. The noun form is encroachment. We'll see many examples of encroachment by Europeans into territory needed by Native Americans. An even stronger action is to invade. To invade is to enter someone's homeland by force, often forcing the victims to move away or give up their way of life. An invasion is usually resisted by force. In times of war, it's common for one people to invade the territory of another. The result of an invasion is often that the invaders occupy the territory they invaded. In other words, someone invades and then doesn't leave. Those who occupy thus have power over those who are occupied, sometimes reducing the occupied to slavery, or otherwise reducing their freedom to live as they please. Sometimes those who occupy force the others to leave. Beginning with the second voyage of Columbus, settlers were brought from Spain to America. While Native Americans settled in certain areas for thousands of years, European settlers took over native land and eliminated the people who were already living there. In other words, having settlers on Indian land means that the land was now lost to the Indians. Aggressive actions are those that force the will of one person or group onto others. Aggression is often accompanied by violence. The word aggressive can be applied to the actions or the person or group. Aggression is the noun form of this word. Aggression is often met with defense. Defense is also often done with violence. The word defensive is an adjective describing an action. Defend is the verb form. Native Americans tried to defend themselves from the violence of the Spaniards. Native Americans would also resist the aggressions of Europeans. Resistance is the noun form. In many cases, Native Americans resisted the aggressions of the Europeans. There's a great deal of vocabulary that's needed to understand the theme of Native Americans, and we'll introduce more as the unit continues. You're watching Ramping Up Your English. This is segment 3 of episode 97. In our previous episode, we learned about the Taínos, the first Native Americans to meet Columbus. What about Taínos today? Let's learn from this video.
My name is Irka Mateo. I am a Taíno woman from the Dominican Republic. I am a folk researcher, a Taíno culture researcher, and I am also a singer and a songwriter. The Taíno people came from the Amazon. They are Arawak. Before Christopher Columbus arrived to the Caribbean, it was populated by the Taínos, but there were also people who came from other places. For example, the antecessors of the Maya, the antecessors of the Olmec. Because, if you see the Caribbean, it is so close Cuba from Yucatan. In those times, it was also very active. People were very good in the sea, so they will take their canoes and they will go all over the little islands of the Caribbean, the north part of South America, the east part of Central America, and the south part of the United States. So this was very active, and there was a lot of exchange of culture and also a business exchange. When Christopher Columbus came, they brought diseases that the indigenous people were not used to, and they didn't have any immunity to it, so that killed a lot of people in the first contact. Then the treatment to the indigenous people was very bad. We were slaves, so we died also for all these bad treatments that we had. And they were stripped out of their culture, their language, and their rights, their religion, their spirituality, and everything that conformed the Taino society. Even though this happened, we are still here. There are a lot of our culture in the countryside. And for example, the material culture, we still have our houses, the way that we used to have them 500 years ago. And also like the methods of fishing, the methods of hunting, and also agricultural methods. And also, there are many words of the Taino language that has come into the Dominican Spanish and even to the world. The word caiman, which is a type of a crocodile, comes from Taino, and we can hear this in the Dominican Republic and other places in Latin America, like Colombia. Se va el caimán, se va el caimán, se va para Barranquilla. Another word that we have of Taino procedence, canoa. Canoa, it's a boat where the Taino people used to go for fishing and also for traveling. Another word is our bed, hamaca. It translated as hammock. Iguana is also a Taino name. The way that we cooked was barbacoa, and it translated to English as barbecue. Huracán, everybody knows what a huracán is. In English, hurricane. Manatee is this, we call it the sea cow. So it's this beautiful mammal that lives in the Caribbean, and we all love. The word Caribe also comes from the Taino. They were the people who came from the Amazon and inhabited the Lesser Antilles. And it is also the name of the ocean, Caribbean. There is a delicious fruit called guayaba, and in English it translated as guava. Another word is tobacco, which was used just for ceremonial purposes and 4 times a year. It is a sacred plant that it was not meant to smoke it every day.
Thank you, Irka Mateo. I'll have a link to her entire video on my website, letscreate.org. Thanks for watching. I'm John Letts.
You've been watching Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English language learners. Learn more. Visit our website at letscreate.org. You can also watch or download today's program at archive.org/details/roadtv. Join us next time on RBTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English.